Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. The Euros around the corner, so we have got the Frank Lampard England shirt on. We're not talking about Frank Lampard today though. We are talking about the favourite to become the new Chelsea manager. Today's Sunday. It's supposed to be a day of rest, but we are not resting. We are bringing you the content to show you how Roberto De Zerbi's Chelsea could line up and set up going into next season. Look, I don't have an insider swoop, but my brain has been telling me that De Zerbi was going to be the Chelsea manager ever since Pochettino got sacked. If I had my way, I would have wanted a Tuchel 2.0. I would have wanted Ruben Amorim. I just have a funny feeling that in the next 48 hours, we are going to know that Roberto De Zerbi is the Chelsea manager. If I get it wrong, don't worry. We've already made a Ruben Amorim setup video, and of course, I will do it if it's Kieran McKenna, Enzo Maresca. But on this Sunday, whilst you're at home, chilling, relaxing, doing whatever you're doing, we're going to talk about Roberto De Zerbi because it's interesting. It's interesting because my concerns with De Zerbi, if I was to weigh things out, a lot of the managers where we're talking about inexperience, we're talking about your Kieran McKennas, your Enzo Marescas. My concern is about whether or not the weight of the Chelsea job would be too much for them. And then as a result, if things don't start well, I think they would get swallowed up in that process. I think it would become too difficult for fans to back it. I think there would always be, if Chelsea started poorly under a manager who has no Premier League experience, I think the majority of us will probably be like, well, we flipping told you so. It's a massive step up to go from being a championship manager, gaining promotion, but then going to manage a club like Chelsea that have now got Europa League football also to balance. We're going to not focus on that too much. Look, we did what we could by the end of the season. If we got better results, we would have had it in our hands, but we left it too late. So De Zerbi, or whoever the manager is next year, there's going to be European football with some probably treacherous Thursday night trips to manage. And then there's also going to be getting a squad that were really behind Pochettino to understand his new ideas. Whereas for Roberto De Zerbi, when you look at the players that he's had at Brighton, if you look at the last two seasons in particular, the season where Brighton finished in 6th, where Levi Colwill was there at Brighton, Moises Caicedo, Alexis McAllister formed an incredible partnership in the centre of the midfield. The issues that De Zerbi had with the Brighton board were very similar to the issues that Pochettino had at Chelsea. Roberto De Zerbi didn't like the vision and the way that Brighton was going. And if I were to have my guesses about this, it would be Roberto De Zerbi is a manager with a strong footballing philosophy. He's got a clear way of playing. Many people say he doesn't have any plan Bs, but maybe in terms of me looking at De Zerbi in a positive light, which is what I want to do for any new manager who comes in, I feel as though for De Zerbi at Brighton, he knows that players are going to be sold. The kind of players that he might want to bring into the club may not have fit the model and the amount of money that he would need to spend in order for Brighton to bring these players in. Whereas at Chelsea, not only do you add in Levi Colwills that he was desperate to sign, Moises Caicedo, who was fundamental and key in making that Brighton team so good when they finished 6th and qualified for Europe for the first time in their history, Chelsea won't be selling these kinds of players. Chelsea may be selling your Chalobahs, your Gallaghers, who were Pochettino players that he would have wanted to keep, but De Zerbi would come in, and I feel as though De Zerbi would be more willing to work with, right, these guys are getting sold, these guys are going to get bought in. Hell, Michael Olise, Chelsea want to buy him, whether it's De Zerbi, Amorim, Tuchel, whoever the new Chelsea manager is, there are targets that the club have that they're going to sign regardless of those communications and conversations with a manager. So I think De Zerbi would look at the players available to him at Chelsea comparatively to that of Brighton and be like, there's more depth here, there's definitely more quality, and in terms of player ceilings, there are some really talented players that under the right guidance, tuition and coaching could become massive players at Chelsea in the Premier League and taking Chelsea to the next level. And I think when you look at the way that Roberto De Zerbi is spoken about, Pep Guardiola is a massive fan of De Zerbi. They have conversations apparently all the time about footballing philosophy. Jurgen Klopp, I think there was a quote, I'm going to get it up on my screen now. I told De Zerbi to keep turning the football world upside down. When you look at the way that people talk about De Zerbi, yes, there are flaws in the way that his teams play. We're going to address those a little bit later in the video. But I just feel as though the way that this whole, I hate using it, you know that, projects thing at Chelsea is going, I feel as though De Zerbi is one of those up-and-coming progressive managers where, with financial backing, with a squad that we're not looking to sell all of these top players that Chelsea do have. We're looking to build upon them. We're trying to build around them. They're very young. They're very adaptable. They're very moldable. I think De Zerbi ticks so many boxes. The negatives are, of course, that he is a combustible character. And we're led to believe that Chelsea don't really want someone to come in and kind of disrupt the apple cart. It's either their way or the highway. We've spoken a lot about the whole yes man thing, but trying to look positively forwards. I think that the issues with De Zerbi's game is that last season Brighton were getting slapped up. But if you look at the way that Brighton have had to struggle with losing their best players year on year on year, you take Caicedo and McAllister, who were such key members of that midfield. De Zerbi likes his central midfielders in that pivot to drop deep, play out from the back to create spaces between the lines and inside the lines. And I think Chelsea have the personnel to be able to do that. A key fundamental reason why Caicedo and McAllister built such a brilliant combination in that Brighton midfield was because they were told to stay close together. One would drop deep to receive the ball, the other would then fill in the space, and then they've got players that can hurt you in the transition. Compare those Brighton players to your Cole Palmers, to your potential Enzo Fernandez, Christopher Nkunku's, Nicholas Jackson, who loves to drop deep as a striker, and other players then rotating beyond and around him. I think the personnel that Chelsea have would enable Roberto De Zerbi to take that style and that philosophy that he's embedded into that Brighton team and try to take over the Premier League, but he's not got the resources. And as much as I've been, I don't know about De Zerbi, because the weight of those negatives, they get hammered in certain games, they concede loads of goals. I just feel as though at Chelsea, the players are better. And I think the quality of a lot of the players that we have available, De Zerbi would absolutely love to work with. So, based on the players that we've got available right now, I'm going to stick up a starting 11 that we could potentially see. This is without any signings, and this is based on the way that Chelsea played towards the end of this season, with Conor Gallagher staying. So the likelihood of this team actually being available is very low. Enzo Fernandez will be back, and I think there'll be an onus on De Zerbi, or whoever that new manager is, to come in and get the best out of Enzo with Caicedo. But you've got a team there where you've got two ball-playing centre-halves. Wesley Fofana, if he can stay fit, if he comes back with Levi Colwill, that is a brilliant central defensive partnership. You've got there Malo Gusto, Marc Cucurella, both perfectly capable of inverting, which is another thing that De Zerbi loves to do, invert the fullbacks. And I think the more that we look towards the end of this season at the personnel, Reece James obviously was coming back, but he's going to miss the first 3 games of the season too. So Malo Gusto, Marc Cucurella, both good, solid front foot defenders, but can also invert inside. And then you've got Mudryk, who is a player that Chelsea have obviously spent a lot of money on. There is a massive expectation on him that's not been fulfilled yet. But Roberto De Zerbi is a manager who's worked with Mudryk at Shakhtar Donetsk, and he believes that with the right tutoring, Mudryk could be a Ballon d'Or winner. Imagine right now thinking Mudryk can win a Ballon d'Or. It's almost impossible, even on a relaxed Sunday, with your feet up in front of you, with a cup of tea, hot chocolate, whatever it may be, glass of wine even if the weather's good. To think that Mudryk can win a Ballon d'Or sounds ridiculous. But you add in here, when you look at this 11, Colwill, Caicedo, Mudryk, all worked under De Zerbi and all improved massively as a result of being coached by him. I think there is a lot of positives. That it took me a while because I was like, not really wanting to believe De Zerbi was going to be the manager because of the weight of those things that I think have been bad. But the more I look at his style, the more I think about the personnel that Chelsea have, And I guess you could say the ambition that we've got to keep building that squad further. We're linked to players like Michael Olise, players that can absolutely pin those fullbacks, create those overloads, the 1v1s that Chelsea were becoming so good at already at the end of this season, with your Noni Maduekes in there too. I absolutely think that this team could absolutely flourish, thrive under Roberto De Zerbi. So, when I think about the way that De Zerbi wants to play, the goalkeeper is a massive part of this. Now, he obviously worked with Sanchez, but then he dropped Sanchez, and Jason Steele became the goalkeeper at Brighton, and then it was Verbruggen or whatever his name is. So I do think if De Zerbi was to come in, there would be a need for a new goalkeeper. I've seen some crazy rumours somewhere that Edison was available from Man City. If that's the case, then it's a no-brainer. He's a world-class goalkeeper. Some people don't rate him. But when it comes to playing with the ball at your feet, De Zerbi would have two players, the two centre-backs, coming close to the goalkeeper to create those different passing options, to build from the back. Colwill, Fofana, more than competent. I'd say that Edison would probably be unrealistic, but then there's also the Chelsea links to Emi Martinez, a player that likes to have the ball at his feet. Yes, he's definitely got an error in there, for sure. There's also Mamardashvili, potentially available this summer at Valencia. Those are three goalkeepers that I think Chelsea should be looking at if we were to get a Roberto De Zerbi to come in. There's also, with the Thiago Silva exit, the probable Trevoh Chalobah exit, that bringing in another, maybe not so injury-prone centre-back could also be necessary. Maybe even two, we're led to believe this summer, that Chelsea could bring in. But when we move forwards into this team is where I think it gets the most exciting. Romeo Lavia is also going to be coming back into the fold this season. If we can get a tune out of him for that rotations with Enzo, Caicedo. De Zerbi doesn't always play with a 4-2-3-1. There was a period at Shakhtar when he did go with a 4-3-3 formation. But I think moving forward is where we get the best out of potentially having De Zerbi as a manager. Your likes of Cole Palmer, Noni Madueke, Mudryk that we've already spoken about, and Nkunku Jackson. These players, I think regardless of what happens this summer with the manager, Chelsea will be looking to bring in a striker. De Zerbi likes his strikers to drop deep, and he also likes those number 10s to make those runs, which we have seen Palmer do on countless occasions this season. And Nkunku, also massively competent within this realm of attacking as well. So if Chelsea were to confirm a signing, such as someone like Michael Olise, it might be more difficult now that Man United have Europa League over Chelsea, will be in the Conference League next season. Not ideal, but it is what it is. When you've got a front four there of Olise, Palmer, Nkunku or Mudryk, I think Mudryk would have a big say under De Zerbi, because I think he would feel like he had a manager that believed in him. And I think when you've got a manager that wants to play aggressive football, progressive attacking football, I think players like Mudryk, who already know that the manager likes him, would absolutely thrive under Roberto De Zerbi. There's also still the links to Victor Osimhen, who, when you see that Antonio Conte is about to take over at Napoli, you can absolutely see Lukaku being sold. He goes to Naples. Osimhen comes into Chelsea. You can then use Jackson potentially, drop in a bit deeper. You could use Jackson out wide. And I feel as though there, if Chelsea can bring in a top-class keeper and a really good quality centre-forward who can actually convert the chances that we miss so often this season, with De Zerbi teams, they do have lots of shots on goal. They create lots of big opportunities. Chelsea have got the creative players to do that. You see Caicedo and Enzo sticking closer together, which, even though it was clear, Caicedo, Gallagher, Chelsea so much better this season towards the end with those two. But when Enzo and Caicedo actually played close together, which it was so frustrating that we could see how much better we were when they did, and then the moment they didn't and they were further away, we started to fail again. I think with De Zerbi having such an onus on those two pivot players doing that in his 4-2-3-1 system, I think Chelsea would massively improve. Now, I wasn't that convinced by Roberto De Zerbi at first, but when we know that we're going to be spending money again this summer, I think at Chelsea, there will be that belief De Zerbi that will have in himself that he is going to be able to build a squad that isn't going to be disrupted every single year. I think Chelsea, defensively, we've got a new set-piece coach coming in. We've conceded so many goals from those areas of the field this season. Maybe bringing in another top-quality centre-back so that we don't have to rely on Colwill for Fofana to not always be injured. There could be massive success with Roberto De Zerbi. Yes, I've chosen to take a more positive outlook in this video. It doesn't mean that I don't believe for 1 second that there are some serious flaws in this De Zerbi team. But I think that Chelsea is the step up. That is the step up for him as a manager. And I think it's exactly the kind of philosophy manager that Chelsea are looking for. Lots of great things said about De Zerbi from other coaches. Let me know your thoughts overall in the comments down below. I've tried to keep this one positive. You've seen the rotations of different 11s that we have got here in a 4-2-3-1. As the video has gone on, let me know which one you like the look of the most. What about a new goalkeeper? What about a new striker? Thoughts in the comments down below, and let me know what you think would happen if De Zerbi takes over. And it might be happening soon. Come on, you Blues.